major step in the ability of Israel to develop its renewable energy. Why? As you know, renewable energy, unlike conventional energy, is not very stable. We never know when there will be a sandstorm or an occasional cloud or any other item that might affect our ability to generate electricity from renewable resources, and therefore we need backup. The best way of backup is storage, and I think that Israel is one of the most advanced countries in building storage. But another way to create this backup is with connectivity, and the idea of the interconnector is exactly to create this kind of backup to our system. So if we will have a drop for a certain reason in our ability to generate electricity from renewable sources, we will be able to immediately buy electricity from the European grid, and vice versa. If there will be a problem in Cyprus, in Greece, or in any other country that is connected to the interconnector, we will be able to sell green electricity to these countries and basically become their backup. So just few examples, and I think that this panel, of course, as mentioned, there are great speakers here, would give you much better example than the three that I gave, to the ability of energy to be a real important factor in us, Israel, our region, and globally advancing towards our net zero goals in 2050. Thank you very much and enjoy the panel.
Thank you very much, Lior. We would like to hear some great remarks of our colleague, Professor Jim Hall, from University of Oxford. And we're going to show you a few slides of how the future of collaboration in the next decade might seem. So, Jim.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much indeed for the invitation to speak here. You may be asking yourself, in fact, why someone from the University of Oxford is here to speak about energy systems in the Middle East. The reason for that, if you could put up the slides, So I don't have long, and there's much more underneath this analysis. And I should have said, actually, following on from what the Director General said, that the analysis looks at both water and energy. I was asked to speak about water energy today. I'd love to speak about water. But this is the conclusions with respect to energy. Is that the cooperative energy planning has reduced costs by 28%, and it improves renewable energy uptake and uses that renewable energy more efficiently. Self-sufficiency is challenging, in particular for the Palestinians, whereas interconnection actually, possibly with power purchase agreements into both Jordan and Israel, gives a possibility of hedging and more energy security in that sense. And the scale of ambition could actually increase. There's more. We've looked at current targets to 2030. There's a lot more potential to take this system further and faster, including towards net zero in 2050. This work is ongoing. We're planning to do more scenario analysis and trading with our partners in the region, and really hoping to promote uptake and use of this type of analysis as a means of developing shared understanding and planning this system in a sustainable way. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much. And now for the panel, allowed me to introduce Beth Child. She's Deputy Director for COP and Climate Change from the UK, please. Muhammad El Shahi is Director of Delivery and Bids and Supply Chain in Masdar, United Arabs. Muhammad El Shahab is Vice President, Corporate Finance Investment Relation in the Oil and Gas Holding, Bahrain. Yael Ravia Tzadok, she's a former ambassador. She's Deputy Director General, Head of Economic Affairs in the division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Israel. And least but not least, Rashid Tahiri is Head of Climate Change and Green Economy Division in the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development, Morocco. All right. So first of all, thank you very much. I will soon maybe join you with an extra chair. I want to start with Beth. We heard a lot of regional cooperation, and what is the main insight you have, I think, look at developed countries and your experience?
Well, look, firstly, I mean, thank you so much for inviting me to come and speak here. It feels a real honor, the first ever Israeli pavilion at a COP, and it is looking fabulous. So let me just say my thanks for the invite and for everyone who has put the time into producing this. I mean, obviously, and listening to kind of Professor Jim Hall, I think he said much about it already, the interconnection of the electricity, the efficiency. The UK with the EU has been running that interconnected system for quite a long time, and it's been absolutely essential to what we do in driving down the costs actually for consumers and making therefore it an affordable transition that we are mutually aligned at. I mean, I guess when I was thinking about this question perhaps maybe a bit earlier, and I was thinking about the kind of the question to me was kind of what's the importance of cooperation, and I think when I came to try and answer it, I was just thinking, what is the alternative? I mean, Professor Jim Hall has already said, the alternative, if you don't cooperate, is very, very, very expensive. We know that. Or the alternative is actually you don't reach net zero, or you reach it in a very bad way, often for people and for businesses. And I don't know if any of you have been walking around this COP or previous COPs, obviously COP26, our presidency, that theme of partnership and collaboration is just absolutely everywhere. I was at the World Leaders event on the forest yesterday, and that talk about, I know this is wider than energy, about that great green wall, 8,000 kilometers all the way down Africa. That is cooperation. We know we cannot do it on our own. We know these things require a landscape approach. And so I think it's absolutely kind of, as part of the COP agenda, it is all about that partnership and collaboration. I was absolutely, the UK Pavilion, was very fortunately right opposite the signing of that MOU just now. So myself and colleagues were able to see that, and it's so important, as you've said already, to see that cooperation in this area where, am I right, was it the President of Israel yesterday was talking, kind of teetering on the edge of kind of climate calamity. Having cooperation here is so, so important if you want to get quickly and cheaply to a net zero situation. So I think my only other final point, and again, what we've seen in the developed economies, but also the work I guess I'm more personally doing in developing economies across the world, is that actually the reason it's so good is it's because it's mutually beneficial. We do it. We look at that water and energy example. We do it because it's better for us. It's better for each other. We can share. We can learn from each other. I mean, the UK, we're delighted to see is it the Negev Forum, whereby the kind of collaboration there, we kind of support it, we'd love to engage in it, and share the kind of learnings and the kind of technology that we have with a amazing technology, quite frankly, that is outside this pavilion. So, look, the answer to the question is there isn't an alternative, quite frankly. This is the only way to do it, and it's the best way to do it because it works for everyone, and it's in everyone's interests.
Thank you very much. Next question for Rachid. So, Morocco, we see is one of the greatest countries right now that cooperate with a lot of other countries and with Europe, and we would like to hear some of the projects that you are working right now and get your whole perspective on cooperation. And again, thank you very much for attending this.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be with you today in these lovely pavilions. Also, I would like to express the regrets of my minister for not being able to be with us in person due to the other circumstances. Morocco give a lot of attention to the triangular cooperation and South-South cooperation. And it is in the core of our climate policy regarding climate change. And in this regard, we have launched, as you mentioned, a lot of initiatives and projects with our neighbors, European countries, with African countries, as well Arab countries. I want to give some kind of example. Now, these are projects ongoing with Nigeria, to bring a pipe, to set up a pipe to bring natural gases from Nigeria, and this pipe will cover many countries. And these projects will generate also not only the mitigation benefits, but also the green job among the African countries. Also, there is another project, as you know, with the European Union in the term of integration cooperation in terms of electricity. Morocco exports electricity to European Union, Spain, also Portugal. Also, we have launched with Ethiopia a project to promote access to electricity in the rural area. And also, there is other initiatives and coalition that Morocco is part of it, as the Glasgow Green Road, which cover energy, steel, transports, also green hydrogen. Also, Morocco is part of many initiatives which cover other topics, other subjects, other key area, such as waste, for waste to 50 to 50. Also, the initiatives launched by Egypt, AWARE, which cover water and the early warning system, and also the agriculture initiatives. So I want to highlight that to enabling net zero, which is the subject of our meeting. International cooperation is crucial for us to address barriers, not only barriers to low emission technology updates, but also to seize, to reach also the opportunities and also to enhance ambition. So in this regard, as I mentioned, Morocco believe in the cooperation in triangular cooperation, but also social cooperation, and we count now with Israel is a key partner now, and we have many. We are very optimistic, and we have many projects now we are thinking about, and I hope that it's not the right time, but we have to take time and to make these projects mature, and after that we can announce these projects, which has to reflect our expectation and also the needs of our population.
Sorry. So, thank you very much. My next question is to Muhammad from Bahrain. The oil and gas industry has many challenges, and we would like to hear your insight of how you are planning on going toward net zero, and especially if you have, of course, some project of collaboration, we would love to hear it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invite, and delighted to be on this panel. As you mentioned, the oil and gas sector, the biggest contributor to GHG emissions as we speak today, and it will have to play a major role in decarbonization. So the way forward is kind of relying on three things for us. One, increasing the energy efficiency. That's important, because today we cannot, with all the goodwill in the world, and if we all agree, and there is a COP27 commitment, let's move from fossil fuel, it's not going to happen, because the energy infrastructure in the world has to change before we transition to clean energy. And that's not going to happen overnight. That's not going to take 5 years. That's not going to take 10 years. It's going to be a journey. That's why we call it energy transition, and we try to decarbonize along the way of that journey to meet the interim targets that we have and reach the net zero ambitions that we aspire to. So from a strategic perspective and the thinking around what we can do in the energy sector and moving from fossil fuels, will be focusing on energy efficiency. That's one, because there is a lot of inefficiencies in the system when you go from one process to another, whether it's exploration, development, production, transport, refining processes, and then transport again. So there's a lot of pockets that we could focus on to increase the energy efficiency. That's one. Two is dealing with the CO2 that we are inevitably emitting. As long as there are fossil fuels, there are going to be CO2 emissions. So what do we do about the CO2 that is being emitted? So there is technologies around carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So the use side, the utilization, using the CO2 that we are emitting from our processes for industry, for pharma, for food and beverage, for enhanced oil recovery, and that will take some of the burden of having these emissions go in the air. Or the second one, despite the fact that we can do a lot of utilization, perhaps there is more CO2 that's being emitted than we can utilize globally. So we look at storage. So CO2 is emitted, can we find a way to store it safely underground, not have leakage and it not seeping out? And then three, along the energy transition line, is moving away. It's going to be a journey. We know we will all have to get to the point of sustainable energy, and this is one of our mandates to look at, moving away from fossil fuel to sustainable energy, including solar, wind, and other sources. It's not going to happen overnight, but actually build up the capacity, build up the knowledge, build up the technology, and work on collaboration across the region and globally for three main items, I'd say. One, because you get economies of scale from it. If you do one PV farm in one country, as the professor mentioned there is economies of scale to that. You scale it up, it's cheaper, and a lot of the challenges that we have around now is in terms of energy security, is the affordability of energy, which we find as a challenge in Europe now because of the geopolitical tension and the war that's happening between Russia and Ukraine. So that's causing a burden from an affordability perspective. So economies of scale are very important. That's where collaboration comes in. Technology transfer, because no one has the solution. And if anyone had the solution, we don't know it yet. And that's the reason why we're all here, right? To work on a collective solution, because no one can solve it alone, and no one has the solution. And it's not one solution. In fact, you could argue there are different types of solution for different areas of the world, for different countries that would be suitable. And then there's the comparative advantage. Economics 101, effectively, right? There's a country that is good and has a technology and has a lot of sun, a country that has a lot of hydro, a country that has a lot of solar. So how do we build up a global energy infrastructure that, as we discussed, will have to change over time to satisfy the energy demand that is growing while decarbonizing along the way. So a long answer to your question, but I'll just end with this as well. In terms of collaboration and what we're looking at, it's in the renewable energy space because of the economies of scale, in the area of carbon capture, because the oil and gas sector, the energy sector, that's one of the ways of decarbonizing that we see forward, and importing the right technology from around the world in a collaborative way to increase the energy efficiency in our system to hopefully ultimately help us achieve our goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next question is to Muhammad from Masdar. So we know the Prosperity Project, we're working on it together, and I would like to hear maybe some on more projects that Masdar is doing around the world, and also your insight. You know, you are wandering the world, you see all kind of countries and people. Maybe you got a golden insight to tell us. There you go.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everyone. So yes, based on the framework mentioned by Mohammed, by the professor, I think the Prosperity is a good example where the advantages Jordan has in terms of radiation, in terms of lands, is substituted with a strong off-taker in the state of Israel that makes the electricity competitive. So this is the right combination. In another example, in the Gulf area, so in UAE, we have two of the largest solar utility-scale solar projects, and also one of the biggest renewables energy parks, Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park. These are solar projects which produce electricity at a very competitive price, below 2 cents. And in Saudi Arabia is the same. In Saudi Arabia, one of the projects which is the cheapest, almost one of the cheapest in the world, 1 cent. In Shuaibah, 600 megawatts. So by the regional trading between the countries, which exists between the Gulf countries, we are able to exchange cleaner electricity between these countries, and also to capitalize on the geography of Saudi Arabia. For example, they have access to more wind and more commercially viable wind resources, which will help UAE and help other countries in the region. Electrical connection between Saudi Arabia and Iraq, Saudi Arabia and Egypt. This is another example of how the connection will further progress the development of renewable energy in the region. In UAE and Saudi Arabia combined, you are talking about more than 60 gigawatt of renewables by 2050. To answer your question also about UAE, in how UAE will achieve net zero, I think UAE has announced a long time ago the energy mix strategy to achieve 50% from renewables and clean technologies by 2050, and the the strategy itself is under revision now, and a new, more ambitious, more progressive strategy will be announced soon to achieve the net zero by 2050 by at least 50% or more of energy mix is from renewable energy and clean technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yael, so we heard a lot on Israel project, but maybe you can tell us, how do you see it? What is our main challenge, and how do you think that cooperation and collaboration can adjust and bring us to our net zero targets?
Thank you very much, Sharon, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Ministry of Energy for organizing this session, and for my colleagues from the Israeli MFA and the Israeli Embassy in Cairo for organizing the Israeli presence in this beautiful pavilion. For me, this is very exciting to sit here with all of you, because regional collaboration is important, is key, is vital, but we see how in the last couple of years the horizon has been expanded significantly following the Abraham Accords. So sitting with a friend from Morocco, from the Emirates, and from Bahrain is a reflection of the great opportunity for collaboration that we all share. Israel is a small country, very small, highly populated, population condensed in the cities. So therefore, solar, we have plenty of sun, but we are lacking the ground, the soil, the land for developing significant facilities for solar energy. And here comes that we are surrounded by neighbors, that land is not an issue, but the combination of our technology, our need, their accessibility to land, and the need for innovation, and the opportunity to collaborate and create something new and added value that can respond to the needs of each and every one of us, here is the challenge and here is the opportunity. I would claim that the climate challenge is an opportunity for our region to collaborate, to respond to needs, to reduce pollution, and to increase stability. Because when we collaborate, it enhances regional stability. And we see in the last couple of years, we succeeded to establish several mechanisms for collaboration. It started even before the Abraham Accords with the EMGF, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, that combines all the countries of the region in order to discuss energy collaboration. And following Abraham Accords, I can give a few examples, whether it is just the MOU that has been signed 2 hours ago, and congratulations to all of us. The Director General of the Ministry referred to that project Prosperity, which exchanges electricity that is produced by solar in Jordan and transfer of water that is so needed to Jordan. So this is a way to collaborate. Another example is the Negev Summit that has been convened in Israel a few months ago, chaired by the Israeli Foreign Minister and his partners from the region. And this was not a once in a while event, but a forum, a formula that has been structured, and how to tackle the climate challenge is one of the topics that will continue to be discussed in working groups. One of them is energy working group. There are 3 working groups with the Emirates to develop energy cooperation. There is a trilateral agreement between Israel, Jordan, and the Emirates, as was mentioned. We have signed several MOUs for collaboration, EMGF that I've mentioned. There is a collaboration of Mekorot Water Company in Bahrain. When we say the climate challenge, it's not only about energy, it's also about food security and water security. And one of the projects that we are now working on with the United Arab Emirates is how to co-work in order to target third markets. And we are collaborating on expanding collaboration between the Israeli companies and Emirati companies to outreach markets in Africa, for instance. The last point is that this challenge engages not only governments, it's about governments, NGOs, and the private sector. And I'm glad to see here the president of the Israel Manufacturers Association, Ron Tomer. Thank you for joining us. It's a reflection that, as you said, this is a journey, and we are all partners to this journey. And the more we collaborate, the better achievements we can have.
Very much. Thank you very much, Yael. All right? Yeah. I know that I have a few more questions, but I would like to do something else, and I hope my panel's members will feel free. I want to speak on dreams. You know, we are talking on collaboration, and we are talking 20, 30 years longer, and I want to ask each one of you, when we are saying collaboration and regional cooperation, can you share with me a dream that you have that might take place in the future? No one is here, okay? This is the only one here. Yeah. So if someone wants to share some great project that you think, well, in my opinion, I think that looking at the network, on the electricity network between Israel, Jordan, maybe go wider. I mean, why electricity that may be produced in the UAE can go to one of the factories in Israel is a great dream. So maybe some of you want to share a dream that you have. No one is listening.
I may start. I'm sitting here in front of you, but in front of me, behind you, we sit in front of the SDG pavilion. And if I have a dream, is to see all these SDGs well responded. While all of us collaborate, we co-work together to make this world a safer one, to make sure that every woman, man, every child would have an access to water, access to food, access to health services, and yes, to live in a clean world with no pollution.
It's a bit of a stretch, but a dream would be to have an integrated energy infrastructure system regionally, could be expanded globally, that it's based on renewable and sustainable sources. I don't know how that happens. There is the Silk Road initiatives. There are a lot of initiatives that go from east all the way to west. So why not? We see it in pockets now, right? You see the GCC grid, for example, but that's only used for emergencies. I think you touched on it, but it could be a live grid where we supplement it with renewable energy sources. You see import of energy happening from Africa going through Spain to Europe. We have the gas pipelines from Russia as it is all the way into Western Europe. So why not have an integrated energy infrastructure system that is based on sustainable and renewable sources? I don't know how to achieve that or the answer for that, but it's a dream.
Yes, I'm sharing your dream.
Thank you. I think it's my dream would be that a commercially viable and environmentally friendly storage solution. Storage solution comes to place very time soon. Sustainable in terms of price, sustainable in terms of environmental friendly, that could be recycled after 25 years, and investor friendly from the standpoint of that this solution does not be affected by the fluctuation in the supply chain in the world, which makes my life and my fellow developers' lives very, very difficult. So this is my dream.
I mean, a great question. I'm going to take a slightly different angle, and I think, as many of you may have obviously kind of felt yourselves in your own lives of the impact of energy prices and the kind of cost of living, it's been suddenly gone off. Thank you. It's been really interesting on a kind of personal level to see how suddenly individuals and consumers have become educated and or educate themselves about actually what is my energy demand, where does it come from, how can I manage and get the energy that I want in the way that I want. And I think that I would really like in 20, 30 years' time for that educated and understanding of what previously was hidden to many people, where it comes from, for that literacy and for that demand for clean energy and sustainable other water and products and those things. So I think that education and that literacy met then by the supplies that exist.
So, for instance, we are very ambitious and we are very optimistic to launch various projects, integrated projects, which cover different key sectors. And also we cover also the enhanced planification, enhanced implementation. We set up smart infrastructure and also a project which is aligned with the SDGs, as you mentioned, also the eradication of the poverty. So, I want to move on beyond the dream, because the dream should be also realistic and based on the specific needs and priorities and potentialities of each country. Each country has its specific needs and potentiality, and we have to take that into consideration in order to set a huge, ambitious projects which has different impacts in terms of mitigation, in terms of resilience, and also in terms of poverty eradication. I am very curious to know, to be a part, and to know the future projects and the steps. That's our partnership. So we will have to. Also, there is a burden for us, or a kind of there's a lot of expectation from our leadership, also from our people, and we are between them, and we have to to do that in the right way, and we count really on our partnership and cooperation, and we have to build trust. Trust already done, but we have to move in this direction.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my colleagues. I think this is a dream come true, but maybe it's only me. And for closing remarks, before we of course have maybe a question from the audience, I want to invite Ron Tomer. Ron is the president of the Manufacturer Association of Israel, and we are great believers in collaboration between government and private sector, and we would like to hear some of your remarks, and then of course we can hear from the audience.
Okay. One. Good. You know, when I speak in the recent years about the climate crisis, I have a phrase which I keep on repeating, saying that we are the first generation actually to understand the severity of the climate crisis. We see it, we feel it, we know the consequences that should come. On the other hand, we are the last generation that can do something in order to change it. If you won't be able to provide change, it might be too late. So after such a phrase, I should continue dreaming. And I should, like maybe some of the speakers in the open ceremony of COP27, like the US Secretary General and others, should push for advancing some of the goals. But the problem is that reality is different, and over the last year, actually reality taught us that what we dream or what we want Jordan, from Lebanon, even from Egypt, we sit here. But I would say that this collaboration gives us hope as well, because sometimes the present challenges will force us to do this collaboration. We spoke here about doing, and the professor shows about the possibilities, of course, to combine it, to do some renewable energies in one place where the strength and the other. The signing of the agreement, of course, for solar energy, for water, is great. But I'm saying more than that. Here in our delegation, there are about 40 companies that actually producing the future. They're producing the new sources of energy. They're producing sources to reduce energy consumption and a lot of other things like climate tech, clean tech, using waste in order to produce it raw materials, etc. Those companies are still growing. They need finance, which your government will provide. They need ease of regulation, which gives them a lot of time and stopping them from advance. And they need a better size. Because in order to penetrate the world, sometimes, especially for companies which are not to the large scale, you need to do it locally. I think this collaboration of the countries here can provide a great better side as well in order to enhance it. Because at the end, as I said, the solution will be gradual, but the development of new products, of new energies, of new technologies should be accelerated as much as possible. And I hope that you together, all of us, can think about that. Not just give us goals. Goals are good. You need to work for a goal, but you need to provide the present, you need to provide the route, and I think that all of us together are obliged to do that, and I hope we'll be successful. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ron. And we pretty much finished, but if we have questions from the audience, we would like to answer. Oh, so great. Thank you very much all for coming. Thank you for listening. And we all hope for a collaborated future all together in the Middle East. Thank you. Thank you very much.